can give a big hand to Byron. It's funny, Byron made me think about a story, it's a couple things. I'm a general contractor by trade. That's what I started out. I've always wanted to, I'm basically a carpenter that decided I wanted to work for myself and build houses. And so I did all that. I did the going to the trade shows and going to symposiums and seminars, worked with Habitat for Humanity. And two things that came out of that was, one of the things I learned that Byron was saying was too many contractors, they get involved in just the work. And there's three ways that for any business to be healthy, and that's number one is you have to get the work, and then number two you do the work, and then number three you got to collect the money. So a lot of builders, they don't do that, and so you actually have to learn that. But the other thing that Byron made me think about was that when I was involved with Habitat for Humanity, I got the opportunity to go to a green symposium. This is where we were going to be helping redesign the plan book for Habitat for Humanity. And this is in Atlanta, Georgia. And it was these small little groups where we got together and we talked about all the different sustainable technologies that were out there that were available. And it was real grassroots. We had these expert architects and engineers that we were working with. And then, of course, there were the people like me representing the people that actually didn't know much. And then the irony is that coming from Hawaii and living in Puna, there was a point at time where it changed, and they were taking notes from what I was telling them that we've learned how to do here. But the funny thing is that one of the people that I was talking with, that I was getting along really well with, afterward, just like in a lot of trade shows and that kind of stuff, we would say, hey man, you want to go have a drink? And so we went and had a drink at the bar. We both liked Jack Daniels, so we're drinking Jack Daniels, we're talking the story, right? And so he knew what I did. He knew I was a contractor from the Big Island. And so I asked him, well, what do you do? He goes, I'm the president of Sony. And we were, you know, talking story, and that's one of the things that, talking about being unpretentious, you know, never assume that who you're dealing with is a little guy, or never worry if he's a big guy, you know. And anyway, so this is kind of cheating for me. Basically what I'm going to do is tell you two stories. I'm going to tell you, and what I'd like to do is focus on what I call beyond plantation mentality, okay? And the two stories have to do with how the Ready to Go was invented, and now I've met most of you guys have heard some of the story. I get to cheat because I get to talk for 15 minutes. 15 minutes? Okay. Okay. Okay, so let me start about 10 years ago. Oh, and by the way, I need to warn you, I have this thing called audio processing disorder, which you'll probably hear more about. And people like me, we take a subject and we go off on this tangent, and eventually, hopefully, if you're lucky, we'll come back. But usually there's somebody in the crowd that I can point to and go, what was I talking about? And they would remind me. Audio processing disorder, your teachers, you look that up. 30% of people that are diagnosed with ADD or ADHD actually have audio processing disorder. And so you'll see how it works in a minute. Yeah. So, okay, 10 years ago, I was building a house out in Hamakua, and it was off the grid. And it's still, to this day, off the grid. And I was looking at doing something. I needed a generator that didn't require gas. That's what I wanted, because I have this ability to kill small engines. Okay, that's one of my curses and my gifts. And you know, small engines, when they see me, they run. And so there's that. There's also the fact that I don't like stopping at the gas station and putting gas in the generator every day. I don't like the sound. I can't stand the sound. And so I had a couple guys working for me that had actually done some projects off the grid. And they had told me how they would just take these batteries to the job in the back of their truck, and they would hook them up with these cables, and then they would use an inverter back then. Trace inverter is what everybody was using. And so I said, well, that's a good idea. I said, let's do that. So I did that, and then I said, wait a minute, we need to make this so that it's not cobbled together, you know. It's not something that is just alligator put together. So I actually built this box, and I fiberglassed it, and I made a lid for it, because I'm a carpenter, made a box for it. And I put the batteries on one side and the inverter on the other, because you can't have these things connecting. You don't want to have the inverter in the same box with the batteries. I had these little hookahs on the side, these little holes. And then a lid, and like I said, it's all fiberglass. It was really nice, but it was really heavy. And so it took 2 people to carry this thing. So it was cumbersome, but it did the job. And that was really the first ready to go. Now, lucky for me, one of my employees ran it over. Totally destroyed the box, but the parts inside were still good. And so I used that as an opportunity to rethink the thing. It was already cumbersome. I didn't like how it was handling. And everything worked right, but it was just moving the thing around. So I took it vertically, and I actually, being a carpenter, built a frame out of 2x4s. And so I made this 2x4 frame, and I put it on a cart, and I had the batteries at the bottom and the inverter at the top. And the more I looked at that, the more I said to myself, wow, I wonder if I could do this out of aluminum. Okay, so I made this thing out of aluminum. And so now I had this thing, they're ready to go, and other people were looking at it, and they're saying, hey, you know, Tony, why don't you make me one of those? You know, okay, so that's part of the story. Now, okay, hold on, I got to go back to the other story I was going to tell you, which had to do with that was the inventing of the ready to go. Okay, now hold on 1 second. Okay, there was inventing, and then there's the design. Now I'm stuck. Okay, I'm stuck. Hold on.
Getting paid.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the really important thing about that is that if I had decided, okay, I had tried to actually go out and find something. Now remember, I'm bad with these small engines, and so if somebody had made that, I would have just bought it. But because nobody was making one, I had to make one myself. And that's the thing about living in Hawaii, is that we all kind of have this accidental inventor inside of us. I remember there was a time that I had this guy working for me that used to live in Waipio Valley. And we worked really well together, because for him, if he didn't have the materials that he needed, like say for instance you needed a door hinge and you couldn't get it, well, he would just find a way of taking a piece of an old shoe and taking the leather and nailing it to the door. You know, and then I come from another background where it's like, well, if you don't have it, you fly it in, you get a helicopter to fly it in if you need to. So between the 2 of us, we actually worked really good together, but we got it done. And so what happened was, as I was out there looking for a machine that would do what I needed, that could have power on the job site for me, I couldn't find it. And so I designed it. And so now I'm called an inventor. Which is, to me, that's the biggest joke in the world, you know, an inventor. But the thing is that it wasn't out there, and so I had to design it, and then I had to take the next step and look into manufacturing, and then getting into getting it patented and all that stuff, and it just taking it one step further, one step further, one step further. So maybe in a year from now, I'll be able to tell you about the success story, but that was 10 years ago that I started that. It's been about 3 years since I've gone through the process of patenting it, getting it marketed, and that's been a whole other, there's a whole other adventure on its own. This is not something I ever said I want to be when I grow up, you know. It just kind of happened, and so I'm rolling with it. It's talking about the building of the business. It's been about that. It's been about the excitement of running with this. And I'll tell you what, there's been some times where I've said, this is not worth it. But then again, there's always that next something else will come up, you know. And the thing is about being in Hawaii, there's so many resources here. There's people that are willing to help. There's so many resources out there. One of them, I have to mention, is Hazel Beck with Small Business Development Group. She is a free service that the county somewhat helps out. And she'll help anybody write a business plan and take things to the next level. There's a lot of understanding that, and this is the part about, you know, beyond plantation mentality. We cannot assume that things are going to be done for us. We cannot assume that there's something out there already. And you just have to take the next step and follow where it goes. And these days, there's really no excuse for not following through. I get people now telling me all the time, Tony, you know, I got this great idea to do this invention, you know, and I want to get it patented, but it's like, there's no reason for a but now. The U.S. Patent Office has made it so easy now. You can go to the website and there's a step-by-step process on how to get something patented. There's volunteers that are ex-patent examiners working for free as volunteers to teach you how to get your patent. So there's really no excuse other than assuming that somebody else is doing it. Don't assume it. Don't assume that the guy you're sitting with can't be the head president of Sony. You know, don't assume that there's somebody, you know, making what you want. Because, and that's the other thing, I found out that not everybody gets a patent. There's a lot of machines out there that aren't patented. So anyway, that's the point about not assuming that, number one, that it's not being done, or number two, that somebody's going to do it for you. Good question. That's a good question. Okay. The other side of that is not to assume that you have to do it conventionally, the way that everybody says it should be done. Like I said, you can go to the website and you can get and there's a step-by-step process on how to do that. The natural convention is that you go to an attorney, you give them a retainer for $5,000 to $10,000. They do a patent search for you, and then they find something that might look similar to what you're trying to do. And then they say, we suggest that you don't go further with this. Thank you for your $5,000. Okay? That's a big part of what happens. Okay, so the answer is, you don't need a lot of money to do this. As long as you're willing to think outside of the box and go talk to these volunteers that are there to help for free. I mean, these people, this is their passion. They want to do this. And it's no longer the fact that we are out here in the middle of the ocean and they're over there, because you have the internet. Okay? And so you can connect with them as if you're right there next to them. Heck, you can even Skype and literally see them face to face. Yeah.
You do trade shows out here?
Yeah, I've been to Vegas and stuff. Do I have more time?
No open forum first.
Okay. All right. Maybe tomorrow I'll talk about some of the network, the hub of Hawaii as being the hub for Asia and the United States, and the mainland. Okay. But that was actually the second point I wanted to talk about. We'll do that tomorrow. Okay? Thank you guys.
Okay, we have